In this video, I'll show you how to configure an OSPF multi-area network. As mentioned in the summary section, multi-area OSPF network design can be used to improve scalability and convergence time within a large OSPF domain. In this lab, we will configure Area 1 and Area 2 to be part of the backbone Area 0. The backbone Area 0 has been previously configured to include router 1 through to 4. I've broken down the required task into two major tasks: the configuration of Area 1 and the configuration of Area 2. We will start with the Area 1 configuration on router 5 and router 1, then complete the configuration of Area 2 on router 6 and router 2. Let's go to the CLI and begin. Before we begin our configuration, it's a good idea to check what we have currently running on the routers. And to do that, let's issue the show router status to see what protocols are currently running. And as you can see, there's no protocol running. At least we don't have OSPF running as of yet. So let's carry on with our configuration. Let's also check the route table. It's currently empty. So let's now configure the system interface. The address is 172.16.0.5 and it's a /32. Let's exit out of that and configure the interface going towards router 1. Interface, let's call this to R1. Return address. The address allocated to this will be 172.16.1.2. that's on the R5 side, and the mask is a /30. Hit return. Now I want to show you something real quick. We covered this in the NRS 1 video, but it's a good idea to show you guys again. So if I now do show router interface, you'll notice that the system interface is currently up, and all we had to do to get the system interface up was to add the IP address. However, the logical interface going to router 1, it's admin up and operationally down. Now the reason for that is because we have not added a port, and we've not also unshot that port physically. So let's go ahead and do that. So the port we want to use for this will be port 1/1/1. Now we've added the port. If we run that show command again, show router interface, it's still going to be down. Like I said, we need to do one more task to get that interface up, and that is configure port 1/1/1, hit return, and then we do a no shot on that one. So if we then exit all and show our interfaces again, both interfaces now should be admin and operationally up, as you can see. So we now proceed with the configuration of the Area 1, the OSPF Area 1. And to do that, we issue the configure router OSPF Area 1. You can either type in Area 1 or do the long form if you like, but I like to put the short form. The long form is 0.0.0.1. You can do that, or like I said, you can just hit 1 on there. Hit return. Now we need to add both interfaces into our new Area 1, the system interface and the interface going to router 1. And to do that, just type in interface. If you do a tab here, you will see the available interfaces. You can now choose the one we want. As you know, we want the system interface. We go back, and the interface to router 1. Exit all show router OSPF interface. We should see both interfaces there. Okay, so now if we do a show router OSPF neighbor, we should see nothing here, and the main reason for that is we've not configured the other end of this link. So let's go over to router 1 and do just that. So on router 1, all we need to do here first is configure the router interface, going back to router 5, and we call that to R5. The address will be 172.16.1.1 on this side, and it's a /30, and we want to use the port 1/1/1. Hit return. Again, if I do your show router interface here, you'll notice that that new interface to router 5 is down. So again, we go over to configure port 1/1/1, hit return, and no shot. Don't forget that, it catches a lot of people out. So now if we do show router interface, we should now see our interface to router 5 admin and operationally up. We've not finished. We need to now create area 1 on the router 1 as well. So we go to configure router OSPF area. Let's use the long form here, area 1, and now we want to add that interface to router 5. So it's going to be interface to R5. Exit all. Now if we do show router OSPF neighbor, we should now see that the interface to router 5 in area 1 is in full state with the neighbor with 172.16.0.5 IP address. Let's admin save this so we don't lose it. If we now go back to our router 5 and issue those earlier commands of show router OSPF neighbor, we should see this full as well. So you now do the show router route table. We should see new entries in here now. So as you can see, router 5 is now learning other networks from the core. So we should now go over to the other side, which is the area 2 side, and do the same thing. So to do that, let's go back to the CLI. This time around, we'll start off with the router 6 side. Basically, we're going to repeat the same thing. So here we go, configure router interface system, and the address is let's just have a quick look on the diagram. It's 17 this time, so 172.17.0.6. So 172.17.0.6/32. If we do a back here, and then we want to create the interface going to router 2, because we're on router 6, remember, and the address is 172.17.1.2/30. That's on the router 6 side, but let's check. Yes, 172.17.1.0 is the network in between both, and it's a /30 subnet. So router 6 is 2, router 1 is 1. Yeah. So hit return there. Don't forget the port. Our port is 1/1/1, and then we go to, you can either issue a / here and go straight to the command that you want to go, if you know what command that is. In this case, we know we want to go to the port configuration, so I can just easily type in configure port 1/1/1, and all in one line as well. I could do a no shot. Yeah, so these are shortcuts that you can use to speed your configuration up, especially if you're trying to save time. So don't forget, you issue a / from any command line that you are already in, and then type in that command, as long as you know that command. And obviously you can use the tab to autocomplete, just, you know, if you're not sure. So in this case, we know what we want to do. So configure port 111, no shutdown, exit all, show router interface before we go on. Okay, so again on router 6, we have our system and logical interface to router 2, both admin and operationally up. Next thing we want to do is configure the OSPF area 2. And to do that, configure router OSPF area 2. We want to add both interfaces into this area. So interface, system, back, and then interface again to router 2. Enter, exit all, show router OSPF interfaces. We've got those two interfaces, but they are still not yet fully operational. Let's do the show router route table here as we did before. We can only see those two interfaces in our route table as for now. If we also do the show router OSPF neighbor, you'll notice there's no neighbor. There are no neighbor as of yet. So let's fix that and go over to router 2. So on router 2, again, configure router interface. This time the interface will be to router 6. Return address will be 172.17.1.1/30. Our port is 1/1/1. We need to go and shut that port, so /configure port 1/1/1, no shut. Hit return, exit all, configure the area, configure router OSPF area 2, add both interfaces. Interface, actually on this side we only had the interface to router 6 because the system interface is already taking part in area 0, so we only need interface to router 6 here. So interface to R6, hit return, exit all, admin save, so we don't lose all the good work that we've done so far. So now if we go back to R6 and issue that show OSPF neighbor command, we should see it's now in full state with interface to router 2. And also if we issue the show router route table like we did before, we should see more routes now, especially now that we are learning also from area 1. So router 6 now will have routes from area 1, area 0. So the route table is a lot bigger, as you can see. So if we now go back to router 1 as well and run the same thing, as you notice, we only had, before we configured router 6 or area 2, we had only 9 routes in our route table. So if we now run that same command again, we should see more routes now. As you can see, we are learning a lot more, and that's because, I'll show you quickly, that's because we've created area 1 and area 2. Router 1 and router 2 are ABRs, yeah, they are area border routers, and they are responsible for sending in summary LSAs into area 0 and then also sending it out to other areas. Now that explains why router 5 and router 6 now have the full OSPF routing table. Now, this has concluded our first part, I should say, our first part of building a multi-area OSPF network. We still have a lot to do, a lot to do. This is just the first basic step that we're going through. So I hope you stick around. I hope you find this very useful, and thank you for viewing.